Hello, assalamualaikum everyone. I am Tasin Loman and you are watching Top News Podcast with Sinar Daily. And today we're going to talk about classrooms. Is it safe? Is it okay? Is it dangerous? That's why we're here with Ain Husniza, education advocate, make school a safer place. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, I love it that you're here because we've been talking about this for the longest time, and I think like even earlier this year you were here to talk about safety and protection of women and girls. I mean, women in general, but also girls in the classroom in
Yeah.
schools. So let's talk about the reforms and everything that comes with following all the astaghfirullahalazim punya activities
Yeah,
and
yeah.
incidents that's been
Yeah.
happening in the school. Like it's been absolute chaos for the past few months. Basically from bullying to rape to pornographic material
Yeah.
up to death. Okay, death. So, Ain, you've called the current education conditions as a school safety crisis.
Yeah.
Safety crisis, okay? What was the tipping point that pushed you and the coalition, your team? I think like it'll be nice if you explain who are your
Yeah.
team as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and why and how do you take this directly to Parliament with the education minister?
Yeah, so we're actually from the Secretariat Sekolah Selamat or the Safe School Secretariat, and basically we're actually a coalition of 8 different youth organizations who believe in safer schools and the need of addressing of the current safety school crisis. And I think that, like me personally, I was, with hashtag Me School Safe Place that happened in 2021, right? So now up until to this day, that's been 4 years in calling and in working of trying to make this idea of schools being a safer place. But basically when we saw this continuous pattern, I think within of 2 weeks we saw like 5 cases happening day by day of rape, violence, stabbing, killing, bullying. And so I think it called me and my friends together that we actually needed to take a drastic action to make sure that that the safety school crisis is actually being resolved and addressed by the Ministry of Education. And I think that we tried like digital campaigns, we tried raising awareness, and I mean personally within the Secretariat of the School Safety, I founded a organization, Pocket Pink, and what we do is that we basically bring comprehensive sex education to
Okay.
schools in Klang Valley as well as marginalized communities all across Malaysia. So for me personally, it was that I tried using activism. I tried spreading awareness by using my voice to spread for trying to call and make schools safer and asking for these policy reforms by the then Minister of Education during that time, which was Razi Jidin. And coming 4 years, we changed governments, and now we see that all of the things that we basically talked about before coming to a fruition. I feel because we said that rape joke will lead to actual violence, normalization of violence, and making fun of violence will lead to actual violence. And now we see it happening to the current students that are in school. So we thought that, okay, we cannot wait. We need to send memorandum. And they've been asking then, okay, so if you've been talking about this, like, what's your solution? And we've drafted 10 solutions.
Okay.
And we hope that through these demands that the Minister of Education will be able to
Could you
make
maybe
it.
you could share with us what are the 10 solutions like for the people watching? Maybe the ones that are most effective you feel personally that can start immediately.
So for us, one of the most effective things is that I definitely feel the implementation of comprehensive sexual education in our own school. So we do have a form of it in our current national system, which is called peers. However, what is peers is actually it's basically fragmented syllabus. So, for example, they'll teach a little bit of sex education in Pendidikan Islam. They'll teach a little bit of sex education in Pendidikan Moral, a little bit of it in Pendidikan Jasmani and Pendidikan Kesihatan. But what happens is that not every student is going to study that, right?
Yeah.
Even myself, you're not going to take Pendidikan Moral. So what happens is that it's not, the key word here is that it's not comprehensive.
Okay.
Not every student is able to learn from it. So that's one of our first demands. And then secondly, the enactment of the Anti-Bullying Act for students, because currently we don't have that. And also, more specifically, the enactment of an anti-sexual harassment bill. But basically, from my case in hashtag Make School a Safe Place, after 2021, in 2022, after 30 years, we finally had the anti-sexual harassment bill, which is a general bill that allows victims of sexual harassment to go to a tribunal in which that they can actually request for their perpetrator and them to be judged by 5 juries, and then they can keep their identities anonymous, because if you actually sue someone, you have to publicize your identity, right? So that is what the anti-sexual harassment bill, and that is a win by itself. However, we do not have a specific policy for sexual harassment in schools. So that is what we are asking for young children who might not have access to go to the tribunal, right? And then thirdly, one of it was also the psychosocial and mental well-being of the teachers as well as the students in school. So currently we have the ratio of 1 counselor for 500 students.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine the sort of burden that is being held by the counselor? And of course, even for the student themselves, they feel like they can't tell. The counselor is the last person that they want to tell. So right now, one of the asks for us is as well to make sure that the ratio is at least 1 counselor for 250 students. Yeah, so that's one of the main ones. And then at the end of the day, for these 11 demands to be fulfilled by the Ministry of Education within 30 days, and if not, she would have to be respectfully to be asked to be resigned because of the inability to handle the safety school crisis.
Okay, and it's interesting because you said that it's a 30-day deadline, right? And you mentioned just now that you only handed over the memorandum on the 22nd, right?
Yeah.
So today is 27th. It's about a week or so. How was the reaction from the Education Minister YB Fadlina to you and your group and during the protest?
So the thing is, I think I have to preface that this was not a political move and it was not supposed to be anything like that. I think collectively, I have to give credit to the minister herself and us, is that we all wanted for the best for students, the safety of young people in our national school system. And so what we wanted was that why we put the demand for her resignation is because we think that this is something that is so important, and all this while we've been thinking of solutions, and now that we've provided the solution, what is the buffer? What is the buffer of you needing to implement those policy solutions, right? Because I've been advocating for this for the past 4 years or so, and now that we needed to walk to the parliament. And the thing is, on the day of the parliament, on the day of the walk itself, on the demonstration itself, there were 2 young children, aged 14 and 16-year-old, who also walked and marched together with us. So if young people were that serious about the safety school crisis to go and walk there, so what is such how hard is it for you as a minister to actually implement these policies if young people are that dedicated to the cause? But I think that I'm thankful for the Minister of Education, YB Fadlina, for the fact that she was willing to come that day and meet us, because I think I texted her the day before and just asking to please come down and accept our memorandum, because my friends that actually went down, there were actually 2 previous occurrences of them wanting to send over the memorandum, but she didn't come down. But however, this time under the formal front of the Secretariat Sekolah Selamat, she actually came down and accepted the memorandum. And I think during that time when I was actually talking to her, I was telling her YB, I think we both know, and I actually knew her even before that, before she became Minister of Education. So I actually met her once, and she was so I would say supportive of my cause. So I think that to this day, I think we just need to show how dedicated the young people, the NGOs, the students, and also the ministry is towards actually resolving this problem in our education system. So I hope that she showed her commitment into making sure that all of these 10 demands were implemented.
It's interesting because you're calling for the minister to step down if all these major key reforms are not implemented, right? But do you think it's more of a systemic problem in the system itself? Even if the minister is able to make changes or implement things or like execute things. But do you think it's like it goes down back to the ground? Like it's the students, it's the teachers, it's the headmaster, it's the parents, like the whole system itself, the whole environment itself. Like you can change the rules, but
Yeah.
can you change the people?
So I think that's why in our demands, it kind of lists out the things like, okay, we have the policies, we change the rules in which that, okay, what is the exact rule, what happens when someone bullies another person, when someone rapes, when someone sexually harasses another person, right? Then we change the rules to make sure that there's punishments. But then we also change how we educate the people. And I
Okay.
think that's how we're trying to approach in changing it in a whole, changing it comprehensively, not just through the rules, but also through the young people, through the students, through the teachers. Because one of the demands that we had was also the comprehensive sex education, which is basically, because when people think of comprehensive sex education, then they think, oh, like,
How
what
to
are we
have
gonna-
sex or
how
whatever.
to do that, like how,
Yeah.
this is going to make the youth even more like wild. But
Yeah.
no, actually, comprehensive sex education is the topic of teaching how young people respect one another, to understand the differences that there exist within genders, to understand the differences that are within one another, and how we can harmoniously coexist and create a safe space within all of us. So that's what sex education, comprehensive sex education is. And I think that not only just extends to teaching the students, but also teaching the teachers. So one of the demands was also requesting training for young teachers to be able to convey comprehensive sex education more better and in more well-equipped way. So I think that is how we want to kind of like shift
Okay.
the system as a whole. So not only changing the rules, changing the punishments, but also I think changing how
The
people
mindset?
think about it.
The mindset to its approach
Yes,
to its
exactly.
sex and everything in between, right? So based on your personal experience, right, like we know what happened in 2021 and we know how the reaction was, especially online. Is terrible. Some people just don't understand how things work. So from from your experience and moving forward, do you think there is a safe area where it can be implemented and executed?
So meaning like what is executed?
I mean, the education, the change of mindset, just to make people think further beyond what
Yeah.
they are used to, accustomed to.
I see. So yeah, basically the stigma
Yes.
surrounding comprehensive sex education really goes deep, right?
Yeah.
Because they think that it goes against our cultural norms.
Yes, yes.
Or what is this? We as an Asian culture, Malaysian culture, we don't talk about this, right? But the fact that we don't talk about it is the reason why sex abuse and sex harassment is so rampant. And I think how we first approached it was that from our organization within the Secretariat of Sekolah Selamat, there's this organization Pocket of Pink, and what we do is that we developed a module, a comprehensive sex education module that combines art and cartoons with the topic of sex education.
Okay.
So because people always say that, oh, this is too inappropriate for young children, they're not going to feel comfortable with it. So actually we use really, really cute cartoons, and then what we do is that teach topics about like boundaries and safe touch using a visual element. So I think there's definitely a safe way, and we've actually implemented this with around 700 students.
Okay.
Ever since we started last year in September 2024 up until now. So we already have the modules, we already have the guidelines on how to implement this safely. It's just within the political will of us actually implementing it in our national education system.
Okay, it's political will. At the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
how you reach the people, right?
Yeah.
So the memorandum also calls for major legal changes, including a National Anti-Bullying Act and also a Safe School Commission under the Parliament. So some might say they are too ambitious because it's major and it involves the Parliament and law changes. How realistic is it for such reforms to happen within this government's term?
So I think that what we mean by melunaskan the
Okay.
11 demands, right, is the fact that she needs to show her commitment, or not just she, the Ministry of Education needs to show their commitment in announcing these reforms, to bring it up in Parliament. But up until now, we don't even hear it mentioned in Parliament, then like how you can talk about implementation, right?
Okay.
And within 30 days, that is something that is completely possible, to be announcing, to be discussing these problems in Parliament. So I think think that was what we were looking for, the commitment towards we will implement this throughout the time. Within the 30 days, we will announce this, we will commit to this cause, and then for them to implement it throughout that other time, right? So, I mean, by the end of 30 days, what we want to see is the commitment of the Ministry of Education into actually announcing their accountability into the safety school crisis. So we have a safety school crisis, what will you do? So we will implement these 11 demands from these NGO coalitions of young people who actually care about making school a safer place.
You know, it's interesting because
Yeah.
these demands are made by young people who are in possible danger of this whole system, right?
Yeah.
So, what's your? I mean, I'm pretty sure since the Zara case up till now, these are the major cases
Yeah.
that has
Yeah.
happened for the past 1 year.
Yeah.
Like, what was your reaction, or what was the response you received by the people on the ground? Because you are memang the face of making school a safer place, right? Like when they met you, when you met with the people in schools, what were they telling you?
Yeah, I this honestly, when I first heard of the cases, I felt sad. We lost yet another life. Another life is yet ruined by the inability of our education system to protect the students in its care. But what I was hearing from people on ground was that, you know, they were saying, oh, this is what happens when you because we ignored the root cause, which was, you know, rape jokes, which was the normalization of violence. So then nowadays we're actually just seeing the result of of decades, I think decades of rot in our education system. And honestly, I think that this has always been happening, but now that we have actually the social media, we have the awareness to see that these things have been happening in our education system. And then another thing was that I think that that's why I was so angry or I was so sad and frustrated to listen to one of the solutions being caning. Because
Yes.
I just thought like, wow, our children are already facing so much violence, and then you want to, you know, enforce more violence, right? And in my opinion, I mean, you might be able to, I think, you might be able to disincentivize a couple of naughty kids around, right? But these kids, that the violence that was happening was murder, was stabbing, was rape. A couple of caning is not going to resolve the root cause, which is the normalization of violence happening. And the thing is, I think the caning solution also kind of puts all of the blame onto our children, kind of put all of the blame to youth, because we need to cane these youth to like put them back into place. But sexual harassment cases are happening between teachers to students, were happening between guards, like the recent case with the guards within
the couple, right?
Yeah, the couple. So what, are we going to cane these guards? Are we going to cane the teachers? And that's how we're going to resolve our problems?
If you want to talk about caning, it shouldn't just be the students, it should be the teachers and the adults who are like doing it, right? Like public caning or something like that.
So you know, caning is not a comprehensive I think approach towards the problem. And I think what I heard from people on the ground was the fact that yes, it is a systemic problem, it is a mindset problem. We need to change it in our education system. We should look through all of these subjects and see what has gone wrong there, because I think quite recently she also mentioned she wanted to have the pendidikan character, right?
Yes.
But the pendidikan character is technically you're just slapping a band-aid on top of a rotting wound, because the problem is that in our subject, the syllabus itself, you can imagine in our Bahasa Melayu, tingkatan 3 textbook actually talks about sexual abuse and sexual harassment. And they say that the root cause of rape or sexual abuse happening is because of the victim not covering up, because of the clothes.
Are you serious? In the book itself?
Yes. And then it says that the consequences of sexual harassment is that the victim will feel ashamed, will be isolated from society.
That's victim blaming.
Yes.
Okay, to be fair, I've been away from school for the longest time. I'm not that young. So I am totally unaware of what is actually in
the syllabus, in the education system. So if you have all of these conflicting things, how is adding pendidikan character going to resolve any of it?
You're telling me that the book actually victim blames?
I can share you the picture.
Okay, you shall share with me after this. But that's insane. Like, why would they? Was there no like addressing the perpetrators?
It actually went viral a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know,
like
the inaction.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But Yeah.
But so
kind of
that's
depressing.
why our and one more is the fact that we having stretched. I think one of the things that really kind of pushed me and my friends towards the move was that the spending of budget towards
Okay.
things that we feel like was like, okay, it's not a problem for you to spend on like a Malaysia pin and to make students feel more national. I don't know how many billions was put into that, right? But when we're facing a safety school crisis and children are dying, children are being sexually abused, then that really puts into the question like, it's not that we don't have enough money, it's not that we don't have enough researchers and policymakers that's working on it. So then what's the key point? Then what are we missing to actually resolve this problem? And I think that was why young people are so incentivized into taking matters into their own hands.
Okay. It's interesting. I want to talk about the dress code for a second.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned that people are blaming, and we've known this. The first thing people ask is, what were you wearing, right?
Yeah.
So how can the education ministry, I would say, shift the mindset that clothes don't matter what you dress, because boys
Yeah.
are getting raped. Boys
Yeah.
are getting raped.
Yeah.
And it's not just some naughty urban schools. These are like religious schools as well.
Yep.
And a lot of people forget that. Only when big cases happen that people raise it. So like, where does this lead for you guys? Like, meaning to say, we're talking about safety in schools, but is there any like gap
Yeah.
when it comes to urban and rural education or awareness?
Actually, now I think it's a pandemic throughout the urban and rural geographic. I don't think there's any geographical difference. I feel like it might happen because of different things. Like maybe like the urban kids are, because we have working parents and might not have enough attention at home. Or for the rural kids, it might be a bit more because of like the cultural norms, like more patriarchal norms, right?
Yes.
There might be differences. But however, it's undeniable that the rate of violence is quite similar.
Yeah.
So I think that however, this takes a much more nuanced approach, right, towards the rural and urban areas. But I think regardless, there is still some blanket areas in which that everything can be resolved. Like for example, like what you mentioned, how can the Ministry of Education fix the mindsets regarding blaming victims or like asking what were you wearing and the sort of dress codes. Like apparently like how they dress actually lead to sexual violence. Because I mean in schools they're already wearing baju kurung, right? We're already wearing like tudung and everything, and I mean like that should not be what is justified, like what should be used to justify sexual harassment or sexual abuse. And I mean maybe the first step they can do is take that page out of the Bahasa Melayu Tingkatan 3 book that is victim blaming the students, that is like that is actively ingraining rape culture into our students. And basically what rape culture means is that when you make rape jokes normal, when you blame how victims dress, because at the end of the day violence is violence. Nobody deserves violence no matter who they are, right? Yeah,
exactly. And talking on that, all right, do you get responses from when you go to school or when you do projects or you go to the ground as well? I'm asking again, like, who comes to you to complain about their safety?
So actually a lot of it is like young children.
Okay.
And
As young as like primary school?
Because our the age of the programs that we do are 9 to 12.
Okay.
So they're quite young. However, in something we do in like community-based areas, like for example PPR or something like that, they can be as young as 7.
Yeah.
But the complaints that we've been hearing are from young children, really, really young children, 9 to 12, right? And actually, they're already well aware that it's like sexual abuse and sexual harassment. However, they say that, oh, this is actually happening to me by my teacher. I don't know what to do about it, or this is happening to me by my friend. And not only complaining, sometimes they don't know what's happening to them.
Okay.
And when we teach them what's
What's happening, what is
sexual
bad, what
abuse,
is wrong.
yeah, what is good, what is bad, and they're like, oh, actually, I thought I was just playing with my friends,
Okay.
and it turns out it's actually sexual misconduct. So it's happening from my own experience of the organization. It's happening to children as young as 9 to 12. However, when you go onto social media, you see so many much more
Yeah.
teenagers talking about it. So
Yeah.
I think that this is a problem. It's happening to everyone to every student in the school, regardless of their age, regardless of their and gender as well, because we also had like complaints from like boys that said that they've gone through sexual harassment. And I think this is like the sort of like kind of misunderstanding is that these are happening only to boys, but only to girls, but actually happening to boys, and they actually face a lot more criticism because you're a boy, like you're supposed to like it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are the like,
But how do you feel when when there's a police statement or when there's a report and people are like, oh no, this is suka sama suka. They love to put that out. Like maybe towards the end it became, I don't know, but what I'm saying is people are unaware what is patut and what is tak patut. So that leads to things to further progress. So like what's your take on when the men or the authorities, I'm sorry, I don't want to say men, but authorities in general are normalizing the fact that it's consensual, even though it's illegal, it's consensual. Like how do you feel about that?
So I think that when they mentioned that, they need to understand like why it's said, why people under the age of 17 or 18 cannot give consent in the first place.
Exactly.
Right? It's statutory rape because there is clearly power dynamics at hand, which is why young people cannot, or like young girls cannot give consent, and why it's classified as rape is to protect the young person. And we also need to analyze like where does it come from that you're saying it's suka sama suka, because it's trying to disvalidate the violence that is happening in schools. Because usually when I talk about the fact that we need comprehensive sex education, we need to make sure that there are policies that clearly address sexual harassment and bullying, then they're saying like they just point out to these like one or two cases and they're like, this is suka sama suka, and I'm like, but that's the thing is, first is statutory rape. And secondly, that's like in minority of cases. Most of them are like where the minor don't even give consent per se. Yeah.
And like, okay, there's been multiple cases as well for the past few weeks where students or maybe teenagers are the one creating content, sexual pornographic content, material, and selling it. And I mean, for me, it's under Sexual Offences Act. It's quite clear. It's illegal. But regardless how old you are, but how do you feel when students are actually doing this for business? Like, do you and also the point where like people are saying, social media should be banned for teenagers. Like where, like, okay, like teenagers are discovering it online and they are using this to their benefits to do business and get money, but like what in the world is happening there?
Okay, so the thing is, young people are going to find out about sex regardless whether, you might say, okay, like you're trying to protect them. So the existence of comprehensive sex education is so that kids who are curious about it, it's human who are curious about it, find it from the right source.
On cartoons pun ada kan, on Netflix is everywhere, right? So
find it from the right source, because they're going to find out about the wrong source.
Yes.
And then that's going to warp their perception of what it is, make unhealthy habits, which is currently what we're seeing now, right?
Yes.
And I think that honestly, when we talk about the fact that the dispersion of sexual content, pornographic content is, being done by youth, I think it's also a very multifaceted issue as well. Because then it's not only like, the normalization of sexual misconduct in school, but it's also the welfare of students generally in our schools, right? Because right now, our teachers are sort of facing they're being stretched out. One teacher needs to take care of around like 40 students. And then, these students, they might be facing like, I don't know, poverty, they might be facing some kind of like exploitation. And when the school is generally supposed to be a standardized place where the welfare of a child is being taken care of. And these sort of things, they can have intervention. If you were, for example, instead of taking care of, if you were a teacher and instead of being forced to take care of 40 students, if you only take care of 5, you'll be able to notice instantly when a child is like going through these conflicts, which might be able to reduce these sort of like really exceptional cases I feel that's currently happening. Because usually, I mean, not trying to justify what they did, but it does come from multifaceted faceted issue.
The factors play a huge role.
Like not being the mental well-being, the poverty issue, lack of exposure towards sex education. So those are the sort of things that I feel like would take some time to do, but at least for now, if we manage to take care of, we manage to provide comprehensive information around how to have like sex education and consent and autonomy, then we will be able to reduce these sort of things. Yeah.
All right. So I think we're gonna jump to our final few questions. On school administrators prioritize reputation over justice in schools. Like they're too busy taking care of their reputation. They're not focusing on the victim, or they're not focusing on making sure justice is given.
Yeah.
I'm not putting a blanket here. I'm just in general. There is always this sentiment, right, by the authorities. How do you propose we change this culture of denial and victim blaming in schools? Like, do you need stronger parents, stronger PIBG, or do you need stronger students themselves? What's because clearly kalau if it's just one person on top says no, everybody follows. So how?
I think definitely for the parent part is necessary lah. And I think I forgot also to add, like, for the 16-year-old social media ban, I think that one is honestly is quite like I don't think that's the root cause either. Because like children are progressing, like they're going to be able to be much more advanced in terms of us, in terms of technology. And I mean, it's like they're like saying as if like we didn't have any sexual abuse or sexual harassment cases before social media.
Exactly.
And we did. It was even worse back then, right? So I don't think that's the root cause. But then touching on your point regarding the parents definitely need to be able to, put more. I think what we're lacking inside our education system is definitely the emotional factor, the emotional well-being and the mental well-being of the student themselves. So parents are naturally supposed to fulfill that, right? But supposed to encourage them.
Can I ask you, like, sometimes parents are the ones so busy on social media, they're not paying attention to the children. I'm not overgeneralizing this, but there are instances where and
that is true. However, I think why I put so much emphasis on the school instead of parents is because there's some orphans out there. There's some children in broken houses. How do we take care of every child, kan? So I think that's why it's so hard to change like how parents act. We can generally put more awareness and emphasis on that. But however, the education system provide a kind of like
it should be the
landing.
It's a landing spot.
It's a landing spot for every child, regardless where they come from. So
it should be safe. It should be where you go to look forward to. And you should know that there are people there to protect you if anything bad happens outside, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not happening because of everything.
And I think like why like the administrators in school also kind of prioritize reputation sometimes over the well-being of their children, of their students. There is also actually in our system itself, there is a sort of like benefit that you get if the school merit is high. And the thing is, the school merit is also, it's defined by a lot of different factors and like criteria that they look through to say that, oh, this is sekolah terbaik daerah, this is sekolah terbaik negeri. But one of the factors that they look through is also like misconduct. And one of the things that is classified as misconduct is actually sexual harassment cases and bullying cases happening in school. So technically, if they report that a kind of like there is a direct systemic sort of like lashback, it's not only just qualitatively like this school's name ada sexual harassment case kat situ, tapi like actually the merit of the school is affected.
So the whole system.
So they cannot call themselves it might affect their ranking lah in terms of that. And you apparently do get like some kind of remuneration if your ranking is the highest in the region during that time. So
sometimes also, money works as well.
So there's a financial incentive as well regarding on why schools like prioritize their names.
So, there was also plans for when bullying was happening. They mentioned like about incentives for the teachers who managed to catch the bullies a few months back, I think. Was it like?
Yeah,
but there's too many things happening at one time, right?
And then like I feel feel like it's kind of like putting so much foot on the teachers,
Yeah.
right? Because the teachers are like the admins. The teachers are like also needed to take care of the students, and now they need to focus on like catching the bullies
Yeah.
as well. I think it is. I mean, it is maybe a short-term solution. However, sustainably, you can't really imagine for a teacher to take on all of that. Right?
yeah.
I think we need to empower our teachers with enough resources and also skill sets. But then also we also need to like comprehensively see how can the well-being of students as well as teachers is being taken care of without one another being stretched. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So before we end, I just like to ask you, like, moving forward, right? Because it's already coming to year end, and like we're already entering November in a few days. It's been a chaotic year for education and schools. What can we hope for 2026?
I think what I really hope for to see by 2026, and after the 30 days, right?
Yeah. Okay, let's start with 30 days first, then we go 2026.
Yeah, I really hope to be able to see that the Ministry of Education really puts her full dedication and commitment into fulfilling all of the demands that we have to address the safety school crisis. To be able to see an education system which is not overstretched in terms of the teachers are well empowered and given a lot of resources and trained well, and for the students to be able to feel safe and not kind of like oppressed in a system in which that totally blames them for the behavior, right? We don't want to see more teachers caning students. Like, the problem is not that we want to like hit the problem like by whacking them all, right? But we want to actually resolve it from the root. So to be able to see students who can feel safe and voice out to the teachers, and teachers who can also do the same, and that as a form of intervention without any more violence, rape or killings or murders happening in our education system.
Okay, last one, okay, before we end. Should social media be banned for teenagers?
To be honest, like, I think
Or children?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that it's kind of like I'm confused on the policies that our government are trying to bring, because didn't they just announce that they wanted to bring an AI module in our education system? Right. You want to teach children about AI, and then you want to ban them from using social media. You want to ban them from using Instagram. And let me just say that actually for me, the reason why that I feel like I was so like well informed about things was because of social media.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who had a net positive for social media, right? It's not just a bad thing, it's a good thing. But the thing that we should change is the behavior towards social media, not the total banning of it all. I mean, it's kind of like the same. Like, for example, in culinary class, right? Yes, people have used knife for stabbings.
Yeah.
But do you take away the knife? Or you teach them how to use it
Properly,
right?
Yeah.
So that's my opinion.
Can I just share that, like, I grew up I went to school in the 90s towards the end of 2000s, and social media wasn't that active. We had social media, but you can only go online when the computer is connected to the internet, and like you're not online 24/7, right? But like we were really exposed to television content, like American TV shows, Western TV shows, right? And it was interesting for me that I knew what was wrong and right, regardless at how old I was. I was watching MTV and all the music videos, and they're all like, I mean, Madonna wasn't that well dressed, or you know Madonna, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Like in general, Britney Spears, Christina.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it now, like I think we're quite desensitized. In terms of performance. And content that is actually allowed to be absorbed by children. So like, it's interesting because like I had friends who had no idea this was wrong and that was wrong, but I was actually aware of what was wrong at probably 9 or 10. I was aware because I was watching things and I was exposed to things that told me that that's not right, or that's okay, or clothes don't matter because people will still rape you. So it's kind of like an interesting conversation when like people just need to know what is right and what is wrong. And not be shielded.
Yeah, I think because that's the thing. We need to build students with values and principles.
Yes.
Right? When we talk about principles are unwavering, regardless of what kind of content you see online. Like, especially nowadays, you see so much violent content online.
Exactly.
Like, even just like us, right? When we see violent content online, we don't feel like stabbing someone.
Exactly.
We feel empathy.
Exactly.
We feel sad.
Exactly.
So the thing is, it's not whether about the usage of social media, but what have we been teaching our kids that allow them to be that?
I think
What kind of values or
indoctrination,
principles?
I would
Yes.
say,
Yeah.
whatever goes into your mind. Like,
Yeah.
if you know, stabbing is bad. But if you watch stabbing content, you're like, no, that's wrong, and you report
Yeah,
it. Yeah, but like some people are like, yeah, I should go out and do that. No, that's
Yeah.
crazy. That's wrong. Like, you're not supposed to do that.
So in a way, there was something closer within their circle that would have led to the social media, because I believe that yes, social media does change how we view things, how we
Uh-huh.
value things, but
Yeah.
it is an amplifier, not a decider of
Betul.
what values you have.
Okay, that's nice. Okay, thank you so much, Ain. Do you have any final messages to the people watching?
So make sure to support us from Secretariat Sekolah Selamat, and I think that we really need to push for a safer school now. So I hope that we collectively as a society will push towards like making sure that our demands are being taken into consideration and implemented by the Ministry of Education. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ain, for coming to Sinar Daily. I hope we can continue the conversation further. And I hope everybody is aware of what's happening and is fighting to make sure schools are safe. Schools are safe for the children, away from violence,
Yeah.
bullying, sexual abuse, and everything that comes in between, because we want a safe future for the children in Malaysia. So I'm Tassin Lokman. Thank you so much for watching Sinar Daily's Top News Podcast. Make sure you follow all Sinar Daily platforms and download our app. Okay, bye guys.